Welcome to the Blue Star Connection, where you have your host, Kelly, myself, and beautiful Kim, who's my other host tonight, on this beautiful March 11th, 2026. We're here to do The Art of the Warrior, Part 2. So, Kim, how's your day been going?
Well, I never get as much done as I hope. But it's going all right. I'm just going with the flow and doing the Wu Wei.
Doing the Wu Wei. Nice. So,
and yours?
Well, I've actually had a pretty productive day, but I also got back from Florida from all the SCD stuff last week, and when you get back from a vacation, things are a little chaotic, so got done getting all the chaos taken care of, and I have some things that are setting up, and I'm excited. I have a sound bath that I'm looking forward to doing with a company. I'm just waiting to get the thumbs up for the go-ahead in late April. And then I had a meeting today with a Pilates place about doing a sound bath there. So just got to get some dates out there, all here in Michigan. And so I've got some exciting things coming down the pipeline. Had great clients today, and life's pretty good. It's flowing, but there's always a little pothole here or there that you fall into that you just got to pick yourself up and keep on going. So, shall we start with the Eternal Teachings and start our Wu Wei, or the Art of the Warrior, I should say?
Sounds great. Go for it.
Okay. Everybody, if you could just sit back, relax, close your eyes, palms up, and just listen to the words and feel it within, and just let the words take you. The Eternal Teachings by Christopher Timms. There is an essence that binds and sustains and is all life. This essence, this living presence, this is the oneness that you are. The oneness that you are. Shapeless, formless, and eternal are you, with no boundaries, no containers. You were never born, so you can never die. This is the oneness that you are. This is the oneness that you are. With nothing to grow into and nothing to become, for you are all life. You are all life. There is no separation between you and me. The air that we breathe, the sun that shines upon us, or the earth that we walk on. No separation at all. All life is one, always has been and always will be. This oneness that is the air and the earth, the oneness that is the seasons for the harvest, the laughter of the children, this is the oneness that you are. This is the oneness that you are. This cannot be taught to you, for this is not to be understood. This is only to be experienced, appreciated, and realized. Accept this and be free. Accept this and be free. Accept this, all of this, and be. Just be. Just be. Just be. Now take a nice deep breath in. Blow it out. Take another deep breath in and blow it out. Place your tongue upon the roof of your mouth and just sit there with your eyes closed for just a second or two. And just feel those words radiating within you. Allow them to percolate within you. Now gently and slowly open those eyes and welcome to the Art of the Warrior.
Part 2.
Part 2. Yes, Part 2, Kim. So we're going over the Art of the Warrior. We're using 3 different books. One is the Bhagavad Gita, gotta help me out here.
Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Art of War of Sun Tzu, and then the
Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I didn't have them right in front of me, so thank you, Kim. So this is number 2, and we're going to go over. So we're now on to number 3 in our line of the Art of the Warrior. So we're going to be discussing between Kim and I the disciplines without harshness. There's a couple stories, and I'll read the first story, and then we'll kind of discuss it and go from there, and then we'll move on. So story 1 is simple movements and total awareness. Socrates gives Dan physical tasks that seem almost silly in their simplicity. Standing still, balancing, walking slowly, and breathing deliberately. Dan expects intense training, but Socrates isn't interested in pushing his limits physically. His training is attention. If Dan's mind shifts, Socrates notices immediately. Dan learns that discipline isn't about strain. It's about showing up fully over time. He sees that awareness makes everything simple. Actions are powerful. That's quite amazing, that little 3 sentences that I just read. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it's the little things that we do that make the difference. It's how we do our walking, our breathing, our eating. Where is our attention going? And I think Socrates was always teaching Dan that, but Dan wanted all these great jump up and land on the roof kind of stuff. But that's not the Art of the Warrior. It's more having a discipline within yourself instead of the fancy things. That's where I go with that. How about you?
I agree. You know, all of us want, you know, the thrills and the fireworks and everything going on. And, you know, may I say, this last week and a half, I think this is kind of a challenge that I've been like facing and looking at, you know, where am I? What am I doing? How am I growing personally? How is my spirituality? Where is it at? You know, do I have the fireworks going off? You know, if I look at Trish and Jonathan's podcast and the mindfulness and trying to move paper and do all these really cool things, and that, you know, that's a lot of fun, and I really appreciate that, and I would love to be able to sit here and, okay, piece of paper, let's move. But I think it's that, but it's also the little things that we do in life. You know, we've talked about inner light, inner sound, inner presence, as you say, LSP. That this, you know, we just need to show up. We need to just show up and be ourselves and work on the little things day in and day out and not worry about the big fluffy, you know, I'm going to do this gymnastics high bar perfect and get the gold medal kind of thing, where, you know, it's starting with the slowness and working that way. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I agree. And just to be clear, I know you mean this too, that we're not saying that's bad and you can't have fun.
No,
right.
Not at all. No,
we're
no.
Saying it's not the most important thing, and don't get stuck on that.
Right, and I am totally into, you know, watching paper move, and I think it's all cool, and I want to know how to do it and start practicing and learning how to do it. I'm not saying it's not cool at all. Please don't take that misunderstanding. But I also know that even our little things that we do day to day will help us achieve those cool things too. So there's benefits to just being able to be still and be able to work on the diet and on the exercise and, you know, our attitudes and how, you know, how we treat ourselves and how we treat others is just as important that in our spirituality as also being, you know, with the little things in the big things that Socrates and Dan are working on here. And I think that's what he's trying to get through to us.
Right. And I do think part of the title of this section was discipline without harshness. So even when you get distracted and you're not doing what you want to do, that's okay. Just shift back to what you're working on. That's all you need to do.
Exactly. So, great insights there. Should we go on to story number 2?
Sure.
So story number 2 is the way you eat. we just kind of, I like how that comes right into it. Socrates once observed Dan eating quickly and distractedly. He points out that Dan isn't tasting his food, just consuming it while thinking about other things. He tells Dan, how do you do anything is how you do everything. Dan starts noticing how often he rushes through life. Meals, conversations, training, all half done mentally. This becomes a turning point when daily routines become part of his practice. How often do you just sit back and relax and just chew your food completely before taking that next bite or put that silverware down?
Are you asking me or the audience?
I'm asking you or the audience. They can put it in the chat.
I would say almost never. I just, when I'm taking a break, eating, I'm usually like, oh, this is a chance for me to watch a show, or, you know, 5 or 10 minutes is all I really get, but I'm not paying too much attention to my food, and which is not very good, because I teach people to pay attention to your food. Well, and the reason is that usually the first few bites taste really good and you enjoy them, and then when you're just eating because you know you love those mashed potatoes, but you're not enjoying the mashed potatoes and you're overeating mashed potatoes, then that doesn't serve you. So if you stop and not stop, but pay attention or present with the mashed potatoes or the cookies or whatever it is, then you'll notice like, hey, I'm not even really enjoying this anymore, and you're more easily can put it away, set that fork down. Because obviously Americans, on the most part, overeat because we're too distracted. So that's where I go with this. And it's just noticing that you're not enjoying it and stopping. It's really pretty simple, and not berating yourself because you ate the whole thing and didn't remember it. Okay, well then from now on, try to do better. Work on that. That's what you're working on, and you don't have to be perfect. We're going for progress, not perfection.
Right, right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have been working on being more mindful when I eat. I've been taking a bite, and when I'm remembering, after I take my bite, I really try to have that mindfulness of setting that fork down on my plate and just chewing my food and getting the full flavors of everything, swallowing it, and taking a breath before I start dishing, because I've noticed since I started doing this, if I'm not putting that fork down and I keep the fork in my hand, I am just automatically shoving it in. I'm just eating, because I'm like, this is good. I like this. Or, you know what? I have 5 minutes to get this done. I'm just shaking. But I find that if I set my fork down, I chew my food, then I take a breath and I pick it back up, one, I become more full and I don't need to eat as much. And it's also helping my body realize, hey, you're overeating here. And so now I'm like, oh, I need to pay more attention to what my body is saying, because I'm not overriding those receptors in my head, and I'm not, like Dan was, thinking a million things and trying not to watch something on my phone. I've actually had a game that I will admit I'm very addicted to, and I just finally deleted it off my phone because I'm like, this is too much of a distraction, and I got things I need to get done, or things that I want to do, and I'm like, we're done. I hit the delete, got rid of it, and now I'm sitting at home eating my lunch today. I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And I'm like, well, I'm just going to eat my food slowly and just sit there. And it's quite interesting just sitting there, not having anybody to talk to, not having anybody to or watch anything on my phone. It becomes almost a little unnerving at first, but I have a feeling as I progress with this, things might get a little easier. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, I'll let you know when I delete my app I like. I'm like, do I want to do it right now? No, I don't. Okay. The Art of the Warrior. I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm not being harsh. So the message from these two stories you read is the warrior is kind but uncompromising with themselves. So to me, you decided you were going to delete it, and you did it. Yeah. And you didn't put it back on because you're like, what do I do now? You were uncompromising, but you were kind. And so let's see. So unlike rigid or punishing warrior ideals, Dan Millman, the author of Way of the Peaceful Warrior, he teaches daily practices, physical care of the body, mindful routines, consistency over intensity, and there is no ordinary moment. Every moment becomes training. And there was something that came to mind. It will come back. So, because what you said somewhere, how you do anything is how you do everything. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to share a little anecdote.
Yes.
My kids they were on the swim team. We're at this huge state championship. All right. And so we're watching the 16 and 17-year-old men's division doing butterfly. Butterflies where you're going like this. And every time I don't know, it was a long one, like 400 meters. It was quite a ways. So many times you get to the end of the lane and you have to touch the side of the pool, both. You touch, and then you do your turn and you keep going. I wasn't a swimmer, so I can't explain all that. But you touch, and so everybody's gathered around this one guy. He's in first place, and we're watching. And then there was one time he went, touch, touch, and you're out. You're disqualified. And all the parents and people around, and the judges saw it. So you're lucky the judges don't see it, but they saw it too. He was disqualified. But we all just went, oh, because we knew.
Yeah.
And how you do anything is how you do everything. So in practice, they always told us this. It reminded me, how you swim in practice is how you swim in a meet. So if you were cutting corners in the practice, you're going to do it in a meet. You gotta, I don't want to say you have to be perfect, but you gotta do it right, or you're just going to screw it up. And he screwed it up, and it was the championship, and he was probably going to age out, never be able to come back again. And you had to qualify to get to this meet. So anyhow, so how you do anything's how you do everything. So are you being honest in everything?
Yeah.
Are you being kind to others around you? I don't know how you might expand on that idea, how you do anything's how you do everything, if any thoughts come to your mind.
Oh, wow. How I do that's everything.
It's okay if you don't.
Nothing is coming to mind right off the bat, but maybe something will come up while we're talking. Yeah, I don't have a story or a thought on that right now. But
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
We can move on.
We can move on, and we'll just figure it out from another angle. Maybe another angle will bring out something, and we can come back and rediscuss that.
Sounds good.
So, do you want me to go on to the next stories, or do you want to read them?
I can read them. These are about courage means facing inner fears.
Okay.
How about I read the first one, you read the second, and I'll do the third. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, so the first story is titled, Who Are You Without Gymnastics? Dan Millman was a gymnast in this story. So Dan's identity is built on being a strong gymnast. When Socrates questions this, Dan feels threatened. Socrates asks, if you couldn't do gymnastics tomorrow, what would remain? Dan has no answer. It scares him to realize how much of his self-worth depends on performance. This forces him to confront a deeper question. Who am I beyond roles and achievements? It's uncomfortable, but it begins his inner growth. So we discuss that before we do the next story?
Yes. So one of the things that I myself have worked on somewhat separating, but also it's still part of who I am, and that is my nursing background. Um, I was an ER nurse for 20 years, EMS for 6. So emergency medicine has been the majority of my life. And then when I switched from ER work to now having my own office and learning craniosacral the tuning forks, and doing some nutrition, it's easier for me to sometimes revert back to my nursing and the things that I learned through that. Not that I don't use them, but I also had to find a new identity for myself, because I left the ER, and now who am I? And so that has been an ongoing thing with me. How do I guess label myself, because you're basically labeling yourself, and how do I approach that? I also look at, my husband. He's been a fireman for 33 years. He's looking at retirement. Well, being a fireman has been his life for 33 years. And to leave that part of your life and not be that person anymore is a huge transition. And so Dan, who is a gymnastics, who trained all of his life to be this amazing gymnastics, now Socrates is saying, well, why are you this? Can't you just leave it behind? And that leaves Dan with this, I feel, because it's, like I said, me, and I can feel it with my husband, it leaves that, oh my gosh, who am I then? What am I? How do I proceed through my life? I don't know anything different than what this label has given me. And so now it's redefining who I am and how do I want to proceed with my life. And that status that I've had, not that it's a huge status, but there's a status, with anything. It could be a social worker, it could be a dog trainer, it could be, a doctor, an astronaut. There's those groups of people, and all kinds of people have their status in their profession. And so when you go and you're starting to leave that profession, it leaves this void, I feel, leaves a void, and now you've got to figure out, who are you? Where do you go from here? And are you going to be okay with it? I've seen with Troy's father, who was a fireman, and when he retired, it was extremely hard on him. And he ended up becoming very miserable, because in the fire department, when you turn the age of 60, you have to leave. There's when that clock strikes 12:00 a.m. in the morning, and if your birthday is that day, you're packing up and you're going home, because you no longer work there. You're in retirement now. There's no more. You don't have you can stay on for a few more years if you want. There's none of that. And so that was such a huge part of his life. He had a hard time adjusting to that. And he became bitter almost, that he couldn't hang out with the guys. He couldn't go to work, and that's what he loved to do for, I think it was 36 years that he worked. And that's hard. That's a big change. So Dan saying, I don't know what else there is to life being a gymnastics. People who end up retiring or lose their jobs or change professions, if you haven't started working on who you are going to become, I feel like there's a void there, and that can make it hard for people to adjust.
So tell me how you felt leaving the nursing profession.
For me, I was ready. When I walked out of that ER after giving my nurse manager my badge and said, I'm not coming back, it was the biggest relief that I had. I knew it was time. It was like the heavens opened up, the sky was beautiful blue, white puffy clouds, the birds seemed to be singing brighter and louder than they ever had. It was the most high feeling that just, oh my gosh, I'm on top of the world right now. When I left that ER and I knew I didn't have to go back, it was huge. My whole demeanor changed. And then it was me timing to come into my office and start building an office, which I had never been a professional, a businesswoman, and how do I do this? And yeah, I struggled for many years with it, trying to figure out what was working, what didn't work. But the other part of it, of me leaving that ER and allowing that enlightening, just that uplifting, was huge for me. And I'm really hoping that kind of gives my husband the same feeling when he decides, you know what, it's time to retire, and he walks out of there like, this is the best thing I've done for myself.
I imagine he's a little scared because he watched what happened with his dad.
Yep. You see other guys, and it's not uncommon for some of the guys to have a really hard time adjusting from firehouse life to civilian life. I'm sure it's similar to, the armed forces. I'm sure it's in other fields where you have this camaraderie of brotherhood, sisterhood, and this is all you've known. You go to work and you have fun and you play but you also have, it's high stress. You're in emergency situations and you're doing this and you're doing that. So that all takes a factor in your identity. And so, there's who are you without gymnastics?
Well, I had kind of not similar, but my own situation. So, I quit my job, started a family, stay-at-home mom, then I'm homeschooling them from the beginning throughout. But when they were 12 and 14, they didn't really need me to, do a lesson for them. They were doing a lot of online stuff too. And I was like, okay, I know this purpose is going to come to an end. I'm not going to keep homeschooling them forever, and I have 2 kids, so I'm not going to keep, perpetually being a teacher. And that's when we can talk another time more on my journey there. But when I found EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and I'm like, why doesn't everybody know this? And so I said to God at the time, my understanding of God, I said, God, I want to help others heal. That's the purpose I want. So that's when I just started, learning and learning and learning. That was what I wanted to do. And also the chiropractic doctor who turned me on to it, I was seeing him, he was doing nutrition response testing, muscle testing, what supplements would help me with whatever issues I asked about. And And going into EFT and energy healing was like, okay, I can learn this and not keep spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So anyhow, the thing was, there was a fear, what am I going to do when the kids are done schooling? I wasn't like worried about empty nest. I was just like, they don't need me and I have time. So that's kind of how I started setting myself up for where I am now, doing hypnotherapy, and the sound energy dynamics was just, I want to help others heal. And I feel like I have been guided that way, and whatever I can do to help people, I love it, love it, love it.
Awesome. So, very cool.
Let's move on. I'll read the second story.
Okay.
Or did I read the first one? Your turn to read the second. Sorry.
Okay. It's the cafe, public situations. Socrates often behaves in ways that break social expectations, saying odd things, moving differently, or acting completely unconcerned with how he appears. When Dan is with him in public, he feels tense and self-conscious. He worries. What do people think? Do I look ridiculous standing here with him? Is this making me look foolish? Socrates notices immediately. Instead of confronting Dan, he gently exposes the pattern. He points out that Dan's discomfort has nothing to do with reality. It is about his image. The lessons land slowly. Dan realizes he's constantly performing for others, even strangers. His ability to build on being admired, skilled, impressive. Socrates' message is subtle but firm. If your peace depends on how you appear to others, you are not free. Dan begins to see that embarrassment is just ego defending its image. Wow.
Yeah, his identity is all about what other people think of him. I'm the gymnast. I'm a man. I'm good looking. That's, what do people think? I'm with this weird guy.
Exactly.
And people will think whatever they're going to think, right? But we can't be afraid of what they're going to think. And I'll share this. So my husband and I are dancing together, two-step, kind of social dancing, and he doesn't want to go out in public until he can do it perfectly. And I'm like, we're never going to be perfect. But that's the fun, is when you mess up and laugh. You got to laugh at yourself. Or, if you mess up, you blame the other person. That's all you do.
And how many people are really watching? That's the thing. We always think that someone else is watching us all the time, and that they're looking at us on how we're messing up, or what we're saying, or what we're wearing, or what we're doing. And the reality is, how many times do you walk down the street and really notice what somebody else is wearing? Or if you're in the restaurant watching somebody eat and see that they're eating with their fingers instead of a fork. We make up shit in that to make ourselves, like, oh my gosh, I'm self-conscious, what are they doing? What are they looking at? Look at how she's dressed. And you're just kind of like, I don't feel comfortable in what I'm wearing today. People are going to look at me weird. Well, in reality, people are probably not going to look at you like you're weird or anything like that. You're just making it up.
Well, they're too busy worried about what other people think of them.
Exactly. So, I don't know. Yeah.
This one lady I know, she's a psychotherapist, and she says, you're just making up stories about what other people are thinking, so make up a story that you like. That's what I tell myself. Oh, they wish they could stand up here and dance in front of people, but they're too, afraid.
Yep.
Or they wish they could wear this beautiful top and stand out. Whatever. That's what I tell myself.
And I feel like a lot of young adults and teenagers and young kids, a lot of this goes on too, and with school age and teenagers, and look what she's wearing, look what he's wearing. Oh my goodness, that's not fashionable. Or it it comes down to other people looking at, you think they're saying this. And I feel like the younger kids or the younger population probably gets more of it because they're just all nitpicking at each other. But as you grow into your 20s and 30s, it becomes not as prevalent because we're too busy trying to take care of ourselves, let alone looking at somebody else walking down the street who might be looking all discombobulated and that. But and when I start seeing something like that, it's I bless you. I hope you have what you need and you're happy and you're healthy, and just go on from there. And or what, thank you for being a little odd walking down the street, because you're being who you are, and so thank you, instead of what, you're just odd and I don't know why you're odd, but or making fun of them. It's more of just blessing them for being who they are.
Yeah, I think as we're older, we're nicer. We're not, mean kids. And I think we just don't care as much. We want to look how we want to look.
Right.
Well, look at all the people who get tattoos. They don't care if other people don't like tattoos. They like the tattoos. They're going to do tattoos, and they should if that's what they want to do.
Right.
There was something else. Oh, this was an aside I wanted to ask you. So if someone's wearing pants that are obviously too short, what do you call those? I don't know if you know where I'm going.
Knickers. I think they used to call them knickers. I don't really know.
Like just slightly too short because you grew out of them. They're too short. I'll give you what we called them as a kid. We call them floods.
Floods? Okay.
Did you ever call them floods?
I've heard floods, but I always thought floods were more where the pants were more wider. But I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, because my husband, we were just talking about it yesterday, and he said we called them high waters.
High waters.
So in the chat, you can let me know what you all think. Okay, anything else about this fear of what other people think?
Somebody, they called them
culottes. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes. Gosh, I forgot about that word, culottes. Yes, we would use culottes.
Those aren't cool though. Culottes. I got to look it up because I don't even know that word. I might have heard of it before. Culottes. Okay, it might be. Oh, it's only one L. Still no result. Oh, double T. There we go. It is a word. Sometimes culotte women's pants, usually knee length or calf length, cut full to resemble a skirt. No, this isn't on purpose. This is because your pants don't fit you anymore. Oh, this is my point with it, was because my son was extremely lean and tall, that often his pants were floods or high waters. And but I'll say, being a homeschooler, not going to public school, they never razzed him about it.
Right, because who saw him? Nobody.
Well, my kids did sue people. But it was just a different mentality than public school. Possibly, I don't know, because it's a totally different time than when I went to school. I went to public school. So anyway, I'm just glad that they didn't give him a hard time and make him feel inferior, because he'd grow through his pants. Like every year you're buying new pants. Okay, that was an aside y'all really wanted to hear. Okay, any more on that story, or shall I move on?
I think we could probably move on.
Let's move on. This is about the gym and athletic identity. Okay, so Dan's identity is heavily tied to being a top gymnast. He wants to be seen as talented, strong, and in control. Socrates sometimes asks him to do very basic or unusual physical exercises, movements that feel awkward or beneath his skill level. And Dan resists internally, not because they are hard, but because they might make him look less impressive. At one point, he realizes, first, he'd rather look good than learn, and second, he'd rather protect his image than grow. And that hits him deeply. He sees how the need for approval limits his willingness to be a beginner, to fail, or to look imperfect. And Socrates shows him that growth requires vulnerability, mastery requires humility, freedom requires releasing the need to impress. So Dan starts practicing doing things for awareness, not applause. And that's when he feels the first taste of real confidence, the kind that doesn't depend on others' opinions. So Socrates' teachings show that fear of embarrassment is really fear of losing identity, fear of not being admired, fear of not being someone. And when Dan loses his grip on that, he feels lighter. He learns that courage isn't performing boldly. Courage is acting without needing approval.
Yep.
So we're talking about fear because the peaceful warrior doesn't eliminate fear. He just stops obeying it.
Yes.
So this really just, what do you call it, emphasizes this identity thing he had and what other people think of him. And he had to let it go and just be courageous and not worry about it. And he felt better doing that.
Right. Exactly. And I feel like a lot of us, if we just let go of some of those identities or some of those things that we admire or whatever's holding within us, if we can let go of those fears, we start to expand and grow, not only as a person, but also spiritually too, you know. And
I would agree.
So, yeah.
Well, let's see little notes I got. The book emphasizes facing fear directly, dropping the need for approval, and letting go of ego identity. Yeah, I really like that approval. I was telling you, I want that external validation, please.
Yes.
Can you tell me I did a good job? Tell me I did a good job. Tell me I look pretty. You know, that sort of thing. And sometimes I tell my husband to tell me the house looks nice. Tell me I did great. And usually he does, so. But sometimes he's like, it looks great. And I say, thank you.
Unbelievable, would ya?
So the warrior learns that fear is a signal, not a stop sign. So it's just showing you you're doing something new, I suppose. And ego is noisy, but not in charge. And freedom comes from non-attachment. That's a big thing on the warrior, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Not being attached to the outcome.
Yes. Yep. And I feel like I've hit a few of those these last few weeks. Just my questions and where am I at and what am I doing? And so, yeah.
Go on.
No, go ahead. I
was just thinking that's part of the art of the healer too. When we do the sound energy dynamics, is we do the routine, we do the process, but we're not attached to the outcome.
Right.
Because I think we're just screwing it up if we just need to assume it's doing what it needs to do, and what's ready to go is going, and it's gone.
Yep. Giving that person that Etch-a-Sketch and getting rid of all the baggage, and when they're done, here's a blank extra sketch for you to reconfigure the way you want life to be, and that's scary for a lot of people. Not everybody, but for a lot of people that's scary. What do I want? What do you mean I don't have to take that back anymore? Well, no, you don't if you don't want to. Well, how do I do that? However it looks for you, I don't know. And that's another spot that gets kind of tricky too, because they can be really involved in their stuff, and how do they let that attachment to all the stuff that's weighing them down, let it go, so that they can have that freedom to make wiser or different decisions that will best suit them. And that's hard for a lot of people. That takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, I'm going to look at this differently, and how am I going to redo this in my life, and that. So yeah.
And out of fear, they just draw the same picture on that Etch-a-Sketch.
Right, because they know that fear, and that fear is comfortable for them. And I feel that's a huge part of it, is that comfortableness. I'm comfortable where I'm uncomfortable, and I'm comfortable. And I think that goes back to the saying you said. You asked me about, how
you do anything is how you do everything. That one.
Yeah, because you're comfortable in your uncomfortableness. It's kind of that same. To me, it's kind of comparable, where you're looking at, I don't really like my job, but I'm so comfortable in it. I know what to expect from it. But if I change jobs, then I've got to, one, go interview, and then I've got to meet new people, and three, I got to learn a whole new system, and that's an uncomfortable spot to be in for a lot of people, because the majority of humans just have a hard time with change. And right now we are in a world of change, and it's not just little change, it's exploding change, and that just brings more anxiety and fear into the whole picture because of change, because of fear.
And it's not a chosen change. It's being thrust on us, these changes. And I would say, everything you said is right. I would say it's not familiar.
Yeah.
So we want to stay in that job because it's familiar. And learning in my hypnosis studies and changing habits is you have to make the familiar unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar familiar. And that's why it just takes a little bit of consistency, and then it's easy, then it's familiar. You just have to tell yourself, I'm choosing this. This is what I want to do. This is exciting. I'm not scary. This is exciting.
Yep. But you're scared to do it because it's new.
Yeah.
So
like doing these podcasts.
Exactly.
A lot of people are like, what? I gotta do podcasts?
Exactly. But I didn't have the anxiety that I had this time as I did the last time, because our second podcast, and I woke up like, I don't know if I can do this. This is I'm really feeling the anxiety, and I'm like, you're going to have to help me through this because I'm just having a hard time here. And I believe that's what I shared too on our podcast, the last one. Just that unfamiliar, but now I am trying to get back on the horse again and do it again. But today is a different day, and I, for some reason, feel more comfortable today. I can't explain it, but things are going better for me. So, this podcast today was not as scary as it was the last one 3 weeks ago. So
you're a different woman now.
I guess you could say that.
Every moment we're changing. So this thought ran through my mind as we were talking about identity. What would you say if I asked you, who are you?
I am no one going nowhere with nothing to do. How's that?
That was perfect. You want to ask me?
Where are you going, Kim? Or who are you, Kim?
I am.
You are.
I just am.
You are. I am that I am.
Yeah. We might expand on that some other time. Or maybe one of our cohorts, other ministers, can tackle that one.
Well, I think Jonathan and Trish have kind of talked a little bit of the I am.
They did.
So they've got the I am out there, and so we're just I am that we are.
We are that we are. I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Let's move along, little doggies.
Okay.
We got a long story. Are you up for that one?
Sure, and that might just take us to the end for right now. We'll just finish off the last story on this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. The teacher in ordinary clothes. When Dan first met Socrates, he was confused. This was supposed to be a wise man. I get that. A spiritual guide, maybe even a master. I get that. Dan expected someone impressive, a guru with a title, a teacher with the following, someone who looked the part. Oh, I fell into that. Let's see here. Instead, Socrates worked the night shift at a gas station. He wore simple clothes. He cleaned windshields. He rang up snacks and fueled receipts. No audience, no ceremonies, no signs that he was anyone special, and yet there was something about him. He moved with ease. He noticed everything. He listened to people like they mattered. He laughed easily. He never seemed to rush or irritated like anyone else. Dan couldn't figure it out. How could someone do such an ordinary job feel so extraordinary? At first, Dan assumed the real wisdom must be coming later, maybe after some initiation or private lessons. But Socrates didn't deliver speeches or mystical lectures. He asked questions, simple ones, sometimes annoyingly simple. Why do you believe that? What are you afraid of? Are you sure that's true? Often when Dan pushes for answers, Socrates would just smile or say something playful that felt like a cryptic. Other times he would give Dan an experience instead of an explanation, making him wait, observe, or try something himself. It frustrated Dan. He wanted direct instructions, no riddles, but slowly something dawned on him. He remembered more than from what Socrates did from what he said. The way he treated strangers kindly, the way he never seemed to need approval, the way he joked one moment and then deeply perceived the next. Socrates wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't trying to connect or to convert Dan to prove he was right. He simply lived what he knew, and that was the teaching. Dan began to see it. Wisdom didn't announce himself. It didn't need status or spiritual blending. It showed up in attention, humility, and how a person meant in each moment. The gas station wasn't a random setting. It was the lesson, because if peace and mastery could live there under fluorescent lights, aim spilled fuel, and tired customers, then they could live anywhere. Socrates never claimed superiority. He never said, "Be like me." He just kept living in a way that quietly asked the questions. What if mastery isn't about being above life, but fully inside it? And without realizing it, Dan had started learning, not from a preacher, not from a hero, but from a man in ordinary clothes who showed that the deepest wisdom often walks around unnoticed. A peaceful warrior is not trying to be better, doesn't dominate or convert, lives in quiet integrity. True mastery shows up as humility, humor, simplicity, compassion in action. Key warrior principles from the way of the peaceful warrior: awareness over reaction, discipline over impulse, presence over distraction, compassion over aggression, practice over perfection. Reclaiming the word warrior. Many people resist the word warrior because it sounds violent. Millman shows that the warrior is strong without being hard, disciplined without being rigid, powerful without being aggressive. That's the art. The warrior has put down the sword, but keeps his strength.
Cool.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So, I have a story.
Okay.
2018, 2019, I don't know. I decided I was going to go on this little journey, and a friend of mine was having this spiritual journey, and I wanted to do it. And here I had it in my head that I was going to learn just from a master for herbs and different plant medicine. And so I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know what was in my head at the time. Obviously, I was not that far along on my journey, but it was a huge lesson for me. Um, when I met the shaman, I was like, that can't be the shaman. He he doesn't look like how I pictured. Again, you have these idolizations, these thoughts, and how these people, different people are going to look, and how you think they're going to be, and almost like a guru, like he was saying. You almost have a picture of a guru or somebody that's like Jesus sitting on a throne, just something ridiculous. And I learned a lot that week. The week was transforming for me. Um, I had to do a lot of soul searching. I had to look within me and realize what was in front of me, because when I first got there, I had no idea what I was in for. And I had no idea what my journey was going to look like. And I had a journey like no other journey I've had before. And it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot that, just like Socrates, an ordinary man doing extraordinary things could be so wise. And the respect and the love that I ended up having for this gentleman was profound by the end of the week. He took me under his wing, and he showed me compassion. He showed me love. And at the end of the week, he told me, he's like, you're welcome back here anytime, because I had transformed from what I thought and what my ego thought I was doing, and it was completely not what really was going to happen on this journey. And I had to really look inside me and see how I was actually going to make it through this week. And it took a lot of soul searching and a lot of like, wow, I need to change my views here. I need to rethink what I am doing. And it was definitely a profound week that I had. And I did come back quite changed from it. So when he talks about, the gas station, who would have thought Socrates would live in a gas station or would help people at a gas station? It's the same thing that I experienced, and I know better now. Experience always helps. It's uncomfortable. I was called out on it. Every Tuesday they did a round table, and boy, did I get called out on that day. It was very uncomfortable. And then I got called out on it on Wednesday, and I finally went back, and I really had to sit down and do some soul searching. So experiences like that just help remold you, allow you to knock down those barriers, those walls, and just allow the love and the acceptance and the compassion and the humility to come through. For Prasad to say to me, you're welcome here anytime. And then one of the other ladies at the place, when she was driving me to the airport, she said the same thing. She's like, you're welcome here anytime. To have that type of transformation is very profound, and I'm not tooting my horn. I went through a life-changing experience that week that if I never would have went there or experienced, I would never have had. So I get what he's saying in this story.
Is there an example of something they called you on, that, like an attachment you had to let go of Do you have an example that you're willing to share?
Um, I don't know. Do I have an example of it? Um, I guess I had read a book, and this book talked about this healing journey, and different shaman were there, and how they and in that book, it gave me an idea in my head what people were going to look like, or what they were, how they were going to present themselves. And from that book gave was not what I had expected. And so I had to really, really let go of those expectations, and really accept the situation that I was in, and begin to open up and allow my heart to accept, and accept the people that were there. And you know my friend that I was there with, at one point, she wouldn't even talk to me. She was so wrapped up in her own story and her own mayhem that she had going on, and she said, "You need to figure this out. I can't help you." And I was left to figure this out on my own. And that makes you grow. That really makes you grow, and sit there, and how do I want the rest of my week to go? How do I want to be part of this group, and to learn what I've come to learn? Was huge. Was huge.
So you had to make a choice. You had to think about, what do I want, and then choose that, and then work towards it.
Right. And a lot of it was just me doing a lot of meditation, and realizing that I wanted more out of my experience than my story of all the mayhem getting there. I mean, I flew to the wrong island. I probably broke my ankle, but I refused to admit that I broke my it was actually more my foot. And I was like, no, this is unacceptable. And I mean, I had so many different things come at me that it really shook. And at one point, I just started screaming, "I surrender." That surrendering of everything that was going on that week, just, it tore me down. I literally was torn down that week from it, and then I had to be rebuilt. I had to decide who I wanted to be that by the end of that week. And it was profound. It was a very profound experience.
I'm curious, this leader guy, he didn't tell you what to do. I'm going to assume that he just led by example and let you kind of absorb what to do.
Yep, he did. He never came and talked with me unless I came to him, and he was always kind to me. He was never mean. And through that, I learned. I grew. And at the end, he gave me a huge hug and said, "You know what? You're welcome here anytime." So it was. I don't want to go too deep into it, but it was very life changing, and only within probably the last 3 years, I've really started to understand some of the symbols that I went through and some of the things that I've gone through to realize the full benefit that I got from it.
Nice.
So
cool.
yeah.
So I'm just going to wrap up this section, and then maybe we can open it up for some questions.
Okay.
So the warrior's path is really about self-mastery, training your mind, showing up fully, and meeting life with courage and compassion instead of force. The fight isn't out there. It's the one between awareness and unconsciousness. So here's some questions for our listeners. They can contemplate, or maybe they have an answer when we open it up. Where in life are you fighting instead of training? What would change if presence was your first response? And how do we practice being peaceful without becoming passive? So if you know how to undo the mode we're in, if any of our wonderful listeners would like to join in, we are ready to receive. That was a great story. I loved how you tied it. How you tied it into your own experience. So, Guy, did you want to say anything?
Yes, it was great, Kelly, to hear your personal story, and yeah, like you tied it in with what the subject you were talking about, and yeah, really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Guy. Anybody else? Well, while you're thinking of something to say, we can mention that next Monday is Sheila and Cammie. They'll be on the podcast at 7:30. And then Wednesday, Joseph has signed up. Joseph, did you have something to say?
That book, Anne Millman's book, Spiritual Warrior, I first read that like 15, 20 years ago. I noticed even back then, all those same things still play a role in my life on a regular basis. Even though I've gotten out of flying, I've had no identity after that. So
yeah,
I'm
you
learning.
were. Sorry, I was just saying you were forced out like firefighters get forced out.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wasn't expected to be forced out. I knew I was going to be forced out of Dubai because Dubai had an age limit. But in the U.S., they don't have an age limit. But apparently, they don't like to hire people over 65 that much. I was thinking that. But actually, I think it's more, there's other things going on. Some places I burned some bridges with management. so I never did get along with management that well. They were always dictating things in a way that was not very logical to me. But they were thinking about making money more than I was, so that's probably why they did it that way. Sometimes they require me to actually go against the rules that we're flying under to make the customer happy. And they were upset with me for not doing that one time. And I said, "Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to violate that law." And they, yeah, you should have known better. I was just doing what I thought was right, And management, they really don't take it well. If you're not doing what they think you're supposed to be doing, even though it's against the rules, they'll fire you for it. But I don't think they would, because if I wrote it up, they'd be in trouble for making me do it. So anyway, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you were acting in integrity.
Yes, exactly. That's my biggest thing, actually. The integrity is what I'm about, but I let other things, like responsibilities for taking care of my wife or other things get in the way of that integrity sometimes. And that's the part that I'm still putting in the right places, trying to manage it in a more holistic way. So, because you can change how you respond to things based on how you've grown in your understanding of things. So, as you understand things from a more higher perspective, higher consciousness perspective, then you don't have to do the same things you have been doing. And that's what I'm learning now, trying to get that sorted out.
That's great.
You guys did a really good job, I thought, going over that book. To me, is one of the most important ones for people who have a profession to be reading about, because that's how you see yourself during when you're first starting that and you're getting really good at doing what you do. You don't want to let go of that because you like it. You like being able to be good at what you're doing. So everybody likes that. So it's a good example for all professional people to be looking at, so they can see themselves from a different point of view, so that when time comes to change, they don't mind changing. That's the thing, no attachment.
Yep.
We want to be special. We don't want to be just nothing.
Right.
And back what you were saying about this book helping you, or your integrity, not the book helping you, but your integrity and still working towards that. We're not expecting to be perfect. We're just looking for progress. And as you do, like you say, look at a higher perspective, you are making progress. Right. And we do the best we can.
Right, that's it. Just be the best you can, That's all you can do. And most people will be satisfied with that. There'll be a few who want perfection, but most people will be satisfied.
Well, then you tell them, go ahead and they can be better. I don't know. If they don't like my cookies, make your own cookies, right?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, it's a game. Everybody's learning how to play. It's just having a good time learning. It's important.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Joseph. And you're on next Wednesday. Everybody wants to tune in because Joseph is an interesting guy.
Sometime.
I think you are. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up, and we'll just plug Christopher Timms. Is that your favorite website? ChristopherTimms.com. He's got mystery school coming up. He's looking to fill that up, and he's always at Spirit Fest. You can find him on his live events page on ChristopherTimms.com. And you can find me at theperfecthealingspot.com. I have a special going on. I help people stop smoking, vaping, chewing, dipping, all those tobacco or nicotine products that they want to be free of. I have a special going on right now, so it's not on the website. Just contact me. I'll let you know. And Kelly, how can they get a hold of you?
They can go to the small letter I, healthrestoration.com. That's my website. You can go on there and see what I offer. There's also a scheduling part of it. If you want to schedule something too, you can go there.
Awesome. I think we're ready to finish up this night. And I'm going to read the mission statement for the House of the Blue Lotus, as spoken by Christopher Timms on February 22nd, 2026. As I'll say, 1926. So, if you were there, you've heard this. Here we go. Since the dawn of time, the ancient ones have walked among countless civilizations, throughout endless star systems, passing the invisible torch of freedom and liberation from world to world, age to age, generation to generation, throughout the universe. This universe speaks in many languages, but with only one voice, our voice. We speak in the language of hope. We speak in the language of peace. We speak in the language of acceptance and in the language of compassion. We are the language of the heart and the language of the soul, but always, always, we speak in the same voice, the voice of our ancestors speaking through us, and the voice of our inheritors waiting to be born. It is that still small voice that says, we are one. We are one. No matter the blood, no matter the skin, no matter the star, we are one. No matter the pain, no matter the loss, no matter the darkness nor the fear, we are one. Here, right here, gathered together in common cause, we agree to recognize this one singular principle and this one singular foundation. Be true to one another, for each voice heard enriches and ennobles us, as each voice lost weakens and diminishes us. We are the voice of the universe, the song, the soul of creation. But perhaps most importantly, each one of us is the torch that will light the way to a better future. We are one, we are one, we are one. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We still have not gotten to the art of war or the Bhagavad Gita, though it's not as long as the Way of the Peaceful Warrior preparation we have. So maybe we'll have it done in part 3, but there will be a part 3. So please join us next time. Thank you so much. Baraka Bashad. May the blessings be.
Thank you.